In 2014, scientists tested 47 of the most popular superfoods on the planet. Kale, the star of health food stores, scored only 49 points out of a possible 100. Spinach showed a better result, 86 points, but the leader shocked everyone present. Blueberries, which are called the queen of antioxidants, barely made it to a measly 11. The absolute champion was a modest island leaf, unknown to most Americans. Watercress, which grows in cold streams throughout the Northern Hemisphere, scored a perfect 100. Despite its unique benefits, supermarkets practically do not sell it to modern consumers. The reason is not taste or quality, but a history of industrial priorities over human health. Victorian London once depended on it to combat starvation, but industrialization wiped it out of the diet. The most nutritious food on earth has become a secret, waiting quietly in creeks and specialty shops. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and the U.S. Department of Agriculture have developed a revolutionary method for assessing food products. They measured the content of 17 key nutrients in every 100 calories of food, creating a nutrient density index. Dr. Jennifer Dinoya from William Patterson University led a large-scale study of 47 products. Her team analyzed the levels of iron, calcium, vitamin C, folic acid, and 13 other vital elements in each sample. The results revolutionized ideas about healthy eating. Many hyped superfoods performed surprisingly poorly, while neglected traditional plants took the top spots. The study was the first to take a strictly scientific approach to nutritional assessment. Until this point, the concept of a superfood was based more on marketing and folk beliefs than on accurate measurements of nutritional density. When the results of the analysis arrived at the laboratory, the researchers double-checked the watercress data 3 times. This inconspicuous leafy vegetable scored the maximum possible 100 points out of 100, ahead of all recognized symbols of healthy eating. Kale, which has become a multi-billion-dollar industry over the past 10 years, only scored 49. Spinach, glorified by cartoons about Popeye the Sailor, reached 86 points, but it was far from the ideal result of watercress. The most painful blow was the results of berries and fruits. Blueberries, for which Americans pay up to $10 a pound out of season, scored a humiliating 11 on the nutritional density scale. Watercress had grown in European and Asian streams for thousands of years, and local people intuitively understood its value. The ancient Greeks fed it to soldiers before battles, and Roman legionnaires carried cress seeds in their traveling bags as a natural first aid kit. In 2023, analysts calculated sales of leafy vegetables in the largest American chains. Kale fills entire shelves at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, generating more than $2 billion in annual sales nationwide. Watercress can be found in only 3% of American supermarkets, usually in tiny, overpriced packages. Most shoppers pass by without knowing that the most nutritious food on the planet exists. The absurdity of the situation becomes obvious when comparing the figures. Americans spend millions on iron and calcium supplements, but a handful of watercress contains these elements in an easily digestible, natural form. The problem lies not in consumer preferences, but in the logistical limitations of the modern food industry. The retail trade system selects products not by nutritional value, but by their ability to withstand long-term transportation and storage without loss of presentation. By 1850, London's population had exceeded 2.5 million, turning the capital into a crowded hive of factory workers. Coal smoke shrouded the city in a thick blanket, and in the working-class areas of the East End, families huddled in basements without sunlight. Scurvy decimated London's poor with alarming regularity. Doctors of the time documented thousands of cases of bleeding gums, falling teeth, and unhealing wounds among factory workers and their children. Fresh vegetables were a luxury beyond the reach of most city dwellers. Potatoes and bread formed the basis of the diet, but this food was sorely insufficient to maintain health in conditions of hard physical labor. Infant mortality in the poorest areas reached 50% before the age of 5. Exhausted mothers could not feed their babies, and those who survived grew weak and sickly from a lack of vitamins. At dawn, the streets of London were filled with cries from street vendors. Fresh cress, just 1 penny per bunch. Children with baskets full of green leaves walked from Covent Garden to the poorest areas of Whitechapel. The Morning Chronicle newspaper in 1850 wrote about 7-year-old Mary Jones, who sold watercress at the factory gate every morning. Her mother noted that the girl was never sick, unlike the neighboring children who ate only bread. 1 bunch of watercress contained the daily requirement of vitamin C for an adult. In addition, it contained as much iron as a worker would get from a pound of beef, but it cost 50 times less than meat. Physician James Lind, who studied scurvy in the British Navy, noted a surprising pattern. Families who regularly bought watercress from street vendors suffered little from the bleeding gums and weak bones characteristic of the urban poor. 100 grams of watercress contains 11% of the daily requirement for calcium, which exceeds that of milk with 10 times less calories. There's more iron in watercress than in spinach, and 4 times more vitamin C than in oranges. Modern laboratory tests confirm the intuitive knowledge of the Victorians. The antioxidant potential of watercress on the ORAC scale reaches 4,000 units per 100 grams, which puts it on a par with goji berries and dark chocolate. The uniqueness of watercress lies in the combination of water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins in one product. Folic acid, vitamins K and A, are present in concentrations that cover half the daily needs of an adult. Oxford University biochemistry professor Tim Spector calls watercress nature's multivitamin tablet. Unlike synthetic additives, all nutrients in watercress are in bioavailable form and are absorbed by the body almost completely. In Hampshire, Victorian engineers built a unique system of gravel plantations to grow watercress. Cold spring water from the Chiltern Hills was channeled through a network of canals across 40 acres of specially prepared terraces. The Mid-Hampshire Railway, known locally as the Cress Line, was built solely to transport crops to London. Every morning at 5 o'clock, special carriages with perforated walls departed from Alton Station to the capital's markets. The plantation water supply system was amazing in its engineering precision. The water temperature was maintained at 11 degrees all year round, thanks to deep artesian springs and an elaborate system of locks. More than 200 families in Hampshire made their living from growing watercress. Farmers knew the secrets of an ideal gravel bottom. A mixture of small pebbles, river sand, and crushed oyster shells created optimal conditions for the plant's root system. At 4 in the morning, Hampshire farmers cut watercress in complete darkness, using only kerosene lamps. The plant had to be harvested before sunrise to ensure the leaves retained maximum freshness and crispness on the long journey to London. The diary of farmer William Carter from the year 1872 records incredible speed. The crop, cut at 4 in the morning, was already on the shelves of Covent Garden by 8 in the morning. No modern logistics chain can boast such speedy delivery of fresh herbs. The secret lay in the thoughtful synchronization of all links in the chain. Trains waited for farmers at stations, traders met trains at London stations, and street sellers were already queuing for fresh goods. Modern supermarkets receive greens 7 to 10 days after harvest, even under ideal cold chain conditions. The Victorian cress system worked 20 times faster, delivering a product with maximum vitamins and minerals to consumers. By 1911, American cities were growing at a rate of 20% per decade, absorbing millions of European immigrants and rural farmers. New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia became giant industrial centers with populations of several million each. Local farms could no longer feed the growing cities. The food industry was faced with the need to transport food thousands of miles from producers to consumers, requiring fundamentally new storage and transportation solutions. Railroad magnates like Cornelius Vanderbilt began to dictate terms to the agricultural sector. Farmers had to grow not the most nutritious, but the most transportable crops that could withstand weeks in railroad cars without refrigeration. The traditional system of local supply collapsed under the pressure of industrial logic. Watercress, which could not be transported more than 100 miles from its collection point, was the first casualty of the new era of mass food production. In 1908, The Bury Seed Company received a patent for a revolutionary variety of lettuce that could withstand transcontinental shipping. Breeders crossed different types of lettuce for 15 years, achieving maximum leaf density and water resistance. Company founder David Bury understood the main need of the American market. They needed a vegetable that would retain its marketable appearance after 2 weeks in a railroad car. Nutritional value took a back seat to the demands of logistics and profitability. The first shipments of the new salad traveled from California to New York in special train cars filled with crushed ice. It is for this transportation feature that the salad received the name iceberg, as a reminder of the tons of ice required for its delivery. By 1920, iceberg began to dominate the American market for leafy vegetables. California farmers planted it in tens of thousands of acres, creating the first-ever industrial monoculture of lettuce plants. Technical innovation has turned the iceberg into an ideal product for the mass market. Vacuum cooling, invented in the 1930s, made it possible to reduce the temperature of heads of cabbage from 30 to 2 degrees in 20 minutes. Packaging in a modified atmosphere increased the shelf life to up to a month without any visible loss of quality. Engineers replaced ordinary air with a mixture of nitrogen and carbon dioxide, which slowed down the process of wilting and darkening of leaves. Standardization of the size and shape of the iceberg made it easier to automate packaging and transportation. Each head of cabbage weighed strictly from 400 to 600 grams, which made it possible to place them in boxes like industrial parts without damage. Supermarkets fell in love with iceberg for its predictable deliveries and minimal losses from spoilage. Unlike delicate greens, which required daily renewal, iceberg could lie on the shelves for weeks, bringing stable profits to retail chain owners. Watercress contains 95% water and begins to wilt within 6 hours of being harvested, even under ideal storage conditions. Its delicate leaves cannot withstand mechanical processing, requiring exclusively manual packaging by experienced workers. A University of California study showed that watercress loses up to 30% of vitamin C during the first day of transportation. The iron and calcium levels are also reduced critically, turning the superfood into just plain greens with minimal nutritional value. Iceberg lettuce, on the contrary, remains marketable for 21 days due to its dense structure and low content of volatile compounds. Automated lines can process up to 10,000 heads of cabbage per hour without damage. The economics of transportation became a deciding factor. Railroad companies charge the same fee for transporting a ton of iceberg or watercress, but the iceberg brought in 10 times more profit due to zero losses from spoilage in transit. The nutrient density chart published by the CDC reveals a catastrophic gap between manufactured and traditional foods. Watercress received the maximum score of 100, spinach scored 86, and kale stopped at 49. Iceberg lettuce, which occupies 90% of American supermarket shelves, received a humiliating 7 out of a possible 100. This means that to obtain the same amount of nutrients, a person would need to eat 14 times more iceberg than watercress. Dr. Jennifer DeNoia commented on the results with bitter irony. We have replaced the most nutritious food on the planet with a product that is essentially crunchy water. The vitamin content of iceberg is so low that it is barely superior to potato chips. The comparison with blueberries, which scored only 11 points, was especially painful. Americans pay $5 for a glass of superberries, ignoring watercress, which is 9 times more nutritious and costs 3 times less. In 1975, the legendary Cress Railway in Hampshire carried its last load and was closed forever. Alton and Winchester stations, through which thousands of tons of healing greenery passed, turned into museum pieces of a bygone era. The area under Cress in Great Britain fell from 1,000 acres in the 1920s to a measly 150 acres by the 1980s. Most of the farms could not withstand the competition with the imported iceberg and closed, leaving behind abandoned canals. In the United States, watercress production virtually disappeared by the end of the 20th century. The last large farm in Alabama ceased operation in 1992, unable to find buyers for its products. James Wilson, a hereditary farmer from Hampshire, sold the family business in 1980. Supermarkets want food that lasts a month, but our watercress only lasts a day. We have lost the war on convenience. The average American's diet today contains 40% less iron, calcium, and vitamin C than it did in the 1950s. A University of Texas study tracked the decline in nutritional value of 43 crops over the past 70 years. The paradox of abundance has struck developed countries. With access to thousands of products, people suffer from hidden hunger. Micronutrient deficiency is diagnosed in every third resident of American cities, despite overeating and obesity. Ultra-processed foods make up 60% of the calories in the average American's diet. These products are optimized for shelf life and great taste, but are virtually devoid of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Medical costs for treating diet-related diseases have reached $300 billion a year in the United States alone. Diabetes, heart disease, and osteoporosis have become epidemics, although they can be prevented with the right food choices. In 1998, a laboratory at the University of Southampton isolated a unique compound, phenylethyl isothiocyanate, from watercress. This substance has demonstrated the ability to suppress the growth of cancer cells in vitro by 90%. Dr. Graham Packham published the results of an 8-year study. Consuming 80 grams of watercress daily reduced DNA damage in smokers by 22%. Iceberg lettuce showed no protective effect in similar tests. Glucosinolates contained in watercress activate detoxification enzymes in the liver. These natural compounds help the body neutralize carcinogens from polluted air and processed foods. Research from the National Cancer Institute has shown that regions with traditional watercress consumption have 30% lower rates of cancer. In iceberg, these protective compounds are completely absent, turning it into empty calories with no therapeutic effect. Victorian doctors prescribed watercress to treat scurvy, anemia, and weak bones, unaware of the existence of vitamins. Their recommendations were based on centuries of observation and an intuitive understanding of the connection between food and health. Nicholas Culpeper, in his Herbalism of 1653, described watercress as a blood purifier and spirit strengthener. Modern science has confirmed his words. High iron content actually fights anemia, and antioxidants protect the nervous system. Ethnobiological studies have documented the use of watercress in traditional medicine from Ireland to China. Traditional healers independently came to the same conclusions about its healing properties, without having modern analytical tools. Modern society relies on labels, ratings, and marketing campaigns to select products. We have lost the ability to recognize quality food intuitively, trusting corporations to decide what goes on our tables and in our bodies. In the 21st century, watercress is grown by only a few specialized farms in Oregon, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Watercress USA produces about 100 tons per year for the entire country, which is a tiny share of the leafy vegetable market. Farmers' markets in large cities sometimes offer fresh watercress for $8 to $12 per pound. This cost is 5 times higher than the price of organic spinach, although the nutritional value of watercress is incomparably higher. Wild watercress still grows in the clear streams of the Appalachian Mountains, Great Lakes, and Pacific Coast. Experienced collectors know safe places to collect, but warn about the risk of contamination from industrial runoff. British farms in Dorset and Hampshire have maintained the cress-growing tradition, serving fine dining restaurants and exporting small quantities to high-end stores in Europe. Their products remain unavailable to the mass consumer due to logistical limitations. The modern food industry is optimized for 3 criteria: transportability, shelf life, and profitability. Consumer health ranks 4th in this hierarchy of priorities, which explains the dominance of empty calories on supermarket shelves. The retail economic model rewards products with a long shelf life. Shops make more profit from an iceberg that sits for 3 weeks than from watercress that needs to be sold in a day. Logistics giants like Amazon Fresh could revolutionize the delivery of perishable superfoods, but are investing in warehouse automation for standardized items. The system works against biodiversity and nutrient density. The history of watercress shows that the healthiest food is often the least convenient for the industry. Every grocery store choice becomes a vote for the future of our health and food system. Look for watercress in specialty departments, buy from local farmers, or grow it on your windowsill. The planet's most nutritious food deserves to be brought back to our tables.